Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This is just Give Me My Core, whatever that looks like. And so a lot of times people will tell you to operate from your true self, to operate from your core, to operate from your inner knowing. And all of that is true. However, our self is also conflicted with our parts. It's fighting our parts. And so if you've watched the movie Inside Out, which is one of my favorite Disney Pixar movies, it explores the concept of the self versus the parts. So all of those core memories, all of those core knowings are parts of what has constructed the identity of the person. But the parts of us are those pieces that operate from their own understanding. And when they're operating from their own understanding, they create a reality that isn't true knowing, that isn't truly operating from the self, because the parts are trying to protect you. So when you think about your self, that is your core identity. That is the gifts you were given. It is the talents you were given. It is the way that you were born and just that authentic version of you. It's the reason why you'll see some kids and you're like, oh, that kid is really outspoken. But then you see other kids and maybe that kid is a little bit more reserved. If that hasn't come from their conditioning, it's just a part of their actual identity and who they are. And that core innateness is what we're born with. It's not until all the conditioning of other things start to happen in our lives that we start to develop these part systems that are there to protect us. So think of your inner knowing and your core as the natural leader of your identity. It is the you that is bringing harmony to all the things. It is the way that you feel most at peace. It is the way that you feel most calm. It is the space where you can be creative and all these other things. And that is your actual identity. It is you. But then your parts begin to show up as these aspects of the mind. And it's something that you either experienced or observed or was taught to you or conditioned into you to make you believe that something is true. So it's this internal soul being conflicted with the brain and its thoughts. And the brain is really adapted in such a way that it wants to protect you. And if it knows that you were curled up crying in a fetal position because of something that has happened, your brain will be hyper vigilant about that thing happening again. And it will try to protect you from whatever that is. So if it sees semblances of that thing happening again, or remnants of the pieces that created that situation, it's going to be like, all right, this is this because I've connected it to something that I've experienced in the past. So now I have to keep myself safe. Even if your internal is like, hey, this is not that. We don't need to protect ourselves. And those parts operate from your experiences. The thoughts, beliefs, experiences that you've had shape the pieces of you that feel like they need to protect you. But much like the movie Inside Out, they take on these extreme roles to protect you. So, joy is trying to be consistent while anger is showing up, and anger feels like it needs to take this extreme role because it's trying to protect you from something that you've experienced in your past. And I heard a podcast. It was Jay Shetty and Lily Sign was on there, and she was talking about how she names her parts so that she can kind of have this conversation with them. And though it feels, again, hoity-toity, weird, hippie, whatever you want to call it, it helps because you can be like, hey girl, I see you, and you don't need to show up right now. Because I don't need protection. I don't need to be kept safe because I'm going into my internal knowing where there's calm and there's peace and there's understanding of who I truly am. And I don't have to create this external narrative with outside of me because I have found the safe place within me. And those parts want to control the external so that the internal feels safe. But when you're truly resting in your core, in your inner self, that knowing that internally you're safe, regardless of what's going outside of you externally, will be able to combat those mind episodes that are telling you this needs to happen in order for you to be safe. And it's kind of like when you're doing a workout, right? When you're doing a workout, the top trainers will tell you to keep your core strong. And the reason that you're keeping your core strong is because everything operates from it. So even if you place an external weight or an external band or an external machine onto the extremities of your body, keeping your core strong will keep the rest of your body safe. And our brains don't quite understand that when it comes to keeping our emotions safe and keeping our experiences safe, because our brain is hypervigilantly looking for the external thing that is going to be a threat. Instead of saying, regardless of what's going on out here, I can rest in here because this place is safe. And so there are 8 C's of the self that we're going to explore in this episode, but we're also going to explore the opposite so that you can identify when the self is here or the opposite of that self is happening. And so the first one is curiosity. So it is really difficult to remain curious in conversation with others, in just looking at an experience and what's unfolding in front of you when you're already creating a narrative because you're looking 18 steps ahead to try to keep yourself safe from something repeating from the past that has hurt you. So it looks like when you're in a conversation with somebody and they say something that stings a little or hurts your feelings a little, instead of saying, tell me more, because you want to get curious about where that comment came from, what they actually meant, if there's something that you can insert here to kind of get the conversation in a different space, curiosity will help you ask those questions. That's your internal saying, I'm not fighting against anything. I'm not defending against anything. I'm just going to get curious. Like, where does that come from? Tell me more about what you're saying. That's like one of my favorite comments to insert in a conversation with my kids, with my significant other, just in general, is tell me more. Because based on surface level comment, you can make an assumption really quickly. But when you say tell me more and that person delves into the innards of themselves that have created that first comment in conversation, you can start to uncover or pull apart the pieces of them and the parts of them that are making that so that you can develop a sense of empathy as opposed to feeling like you need to put on an armor and combat it. If you have the sense of curiosity, you're operating from the internal knowing that I'm safe regardless of what this person is saying, but I'm going to get curious so I can learn more. The opposite of that curiosity is rigidity. So it's saying, if they said this, then that means this, and that is black and white. There is no gray area, and I'm rigid in my thinking that that is not okay, no matter what their intentions were, and I'm going to combat against it. Rigidity says, if this, then this, and that must be the case, while curiosity says, okay, they said this, ouch, and let me ask some questions to unearth the origin of this comment that they made. The second C is calm. When you are operating from this inner space, this core, this internal knowing, there is a sense of calm that comes over you because you feel like, regardless of what is said, regardless of what has happened, regardless of who inserts themselves, you internally are going to choose to be at a place of homeostasis, to not allow these external circumstances to create a rise in you. And that can happen by saying, oh, that made me angry. Oh, that pissed me off. Oh, that did this thing to me. And I can still experience the calm of my body. I know how to breathe through it. I know how to meditate through it. And if you're experiencing chaos, if you don't know how to make a choice and you're overthinking and you're ruminating and all your thoughts are going super, super fast like a hamster wheel, that is not your inner core. That is all of the parts of you that are telling you that they have to keep you safe. So if you're overthinking, you're trying to think ahead so that you can be prepared for the threat so the threat doesn't hit so hard when it comes. If you're not knowing how to make a choice and you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and driving yourself nuts with all of the what ifs, that is your protector part saying, we need to keep this version of us safe, and so we're not going to make a choice because in the past, historically, we haven't been able to do so. Instead of going inward and saying, I can make a choice. I know how to do this. I'm just going to remain calm and make the choice. What I make a choice about today doesn't mean that I can't change my mind tomorrow. It doesn't mean that I can add to the choice, that I can't add to the choice later. And that will keep the calm within you. And the third one is clarity. Clarity is much like what I was just saying. It's the ability to know what to do and to see things for what they are, because you're able to just weed out all of the extra things that are coming into play, all of the conditioning that you've had, all of the narration from other people that you've had. You're able to weed that out, and you can just be really clear about what's going on in front of you without making meaning of anything, without attaching past experiences to anything, and just being really clear about what you see in front of you. And you don't have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, I'm confused about everything that's going on, because you're only looking at what's in front of you based on what you know, based on what yourself tells you. That identity that you have is unique to you and specific to your situation. It's specific to your own person. And so if you're in a space, your unique identity can give you clarity. You just have to tap into it. Well, and you know that the opposite of clarity is confusion. So if you feel that level of confusion and that back and forth and that all over the place, it's because you're allowing something that's trying to protect you to insert too much information to keep you safe by not allowing you to make a choice, like I said earlier, because you're afraid of making a choice because you don't trust yourself. But if you tap into you, have you ever had that moment where you're like, oh, I know exactly what to do here? It's because you've not allowed any of the other things to stress you to the point of chaos and confusion. You're just saying, yeah, all of that's going on, but like, clearly this is what's happening, and clearly this is what I need to do. And it's because you went inward instead of focusing so much outward. The other one is compassion. It is really difficult to have compassion for other people if you are self-judging, if you're allowing the narrative of judgment of your past to continue the narrative of judgment internally, but also externally. So you're judging yourself, you're judging others, everything is filtered through a lens of judgment. It's really hard to have compassion for other people. But when you have compassion, when you're like, hey, I know what this feels like. Hey, I have flaws too. Hey, I understand what part is showing up for this person. And you can meet that person where they are, knowing that they're operating from their parts and not their true self. It allows you to be more peaceful in your interactions. It allows you to be less judgmental in your interactions, because you're not judging people for how they show up. You're giving them compassion for how they show up, because let's face it, y'all, everybody has a past. All of us have stuff. All of us have baggage. No matter if you grew up in the best family, the worst family, the best circumstances, the worst circumstances, your socioeconomic class was high or low or whatever it is, we all have stuff. And we all show up in the world and in our relationships and in our experiences with that stuff. And so if we can show a level of compassion to other people, knowing that they're showing up with their stuff, it makes it a lot easier for us to not judge them when they're interacting with us, and instead show compassion for the place that they are. And the next one is courage. Being courageous when you don't truly know yourself, trust yourself, or aren't tapping into yourself is almost impossible, because you're allowing that external circumstance to tell you that fear should exist here instead of bravery. And from the smallest thing to the largest thing, being courageous to go start a conversation with somebody comes from the fear of being judged or not belonging and all of these things. If you're afraid to do it, it's because you haven't tapped into the courage that's inside of you. And the way to do that is just to say, every hard thing that I've ever done, I've done. Everything that I was afraid of had an outcome because I'm sitting here and I went through the thing. And so if fear is showing up in its blaringness, because fear will do that to you, your palms start sweating, you start getting all anxious and thinking about the future, etc. If fear is showing up, it's because that part is trying to protect you. Remember when your kids were super little, and you might still have small children right now, and you're with them in the playground and you're like, be careful, don't do that, be careful, be careful, be careful. That develops a sense of fear. But if you say, look at your surroundings, think about what you're doing, you're giving them the inner ability to assess what they might be afraid of, to assess what could happen in their situation, but you're allowing them to do it in the present, as opposed to thinking about that one time where you watched a reel where somebody said that their kid did the same thing and then something really tragic happened. You can't impart your fear onto them the same way that you can't impart your fear onto your inner self and expect to make a choice that is courageous. Courage comes from the ability to say, yeah, fear, I hear you. You're trying to keep me safe, but I know me, and I know I'm strong enough, and I know I'm brave enough, and I know that I've done this before. And even though the fear exists, I know I can still do this thing. So if you find yourself being skited, as Glennon Doyle said, you're scared, but you're also excited about this thing, that's where the courage is. It's like, I'm a little bit nervous, but also I'm going to do it because I know I can. If fear is keeping you stuck, if fear is putting you in a space of freezing, it's because that fear is attached to something that says, I need to protect myself by not even attempting this thing. And then another one of the C's is creativity. We all have gifts inside of us. Mine happens to be speaking and writing. There are people who are really good at art. There are people who are really good at creating gardens, and just all of these things that we are creatively designed to do. And when our creativity shows, we may go do the thing. We may paint the picture. We may go create the video or whatever it is. But sometimes our part says, that's not going to work. That's not going to be successful. That's not going to be good enough. So you'll feel this feeling of stagnancy. It's like you don't feel productive or successful, but you're doing a whole bunch of things, but none of those things feel productive or successful. And it's because your internal is saying, I want to be creative. I want to do what it is that in here I'm gifted to do, and you won't let me because you're stagnant, because you're afraid that that thing might fail. I am sure that Van Gogh had a million of paintings that were just in the back corner because he didn't think they were good enough. And those paintings today are worth millions because what he thought wasn't good enough, because he put his creativity onto a canvas, but he didn't let others see it because he was afraid of that failure, became the thing that was, timeless, and the thing that everyone wants because it's a masterpiece in his death, though. And so when stagnancy says, freeze, don't try that thing, freeze, that's going to fail, you have to tap into your, hey, I know I can do this because it's in there. And if you were gifted with something, it's because you're supposed to impact the world with that thing. Whatever it is, whatever it looks like, however that's supposed to happen, you're supposed to influence the world with that thing. But your protector part says, well, I would rather keep it in here than to go do it and have to face the fact that it could fail, or maybe it's not as good as I think it is, or people are going to judge it, or whatever it is. That's a part that's protecting you from the pain. But your inner says, I'm going to put the creativity onto paper, and whatever happens with it, happens with it. I'm going to write the book, and whatever happens with it, happens with it. It's going to get into the hands of the people that it's supposed to get into. I'm going to record the video, and whoever watches it. Because it's in here for a reason, and I'm going to put it out there because it's mine. It was gifted to me. Another one of the 8 C's is connectedness. And this one is even more intense for me. It's probably the most important one when I think of that core knowing in today's age. Because we think we're connected. We're connected to the Wi-Fi, and we're connected to our social media, and therefore we're connected to people. But connectedness doesn't look like access. And I think that we have gotten to a space where we think that is true. So if I can access people's posts and they can access mine, then we're connected. And that is not what connectivity looks like when you're talking about true inner in your core. It means that I am connected to people. These people know me and I know them, and we have been vulnerable with each other, and we are happy for each other, and we are with each other in our worst moments, and we're showing compassion to each other, but we're also with each other in our best moments, celebrating each other. And connectedness on the internet might look like congratulations in the comments, but is it somebody who you could really bring to that event and know would applaud you? Connectedness is not having access to someone. It is truly being able to have a conversation and caring about the conversation, and then having that happen for you too. Someone truly caring about what's going on in your world and wanting to know more. And if you feel yourself in a silo, if you feel yourself having the fear of not being enough, so you don't want to be connected to people, those are your protector parts. It's saying the people that you were connected to in your past hurt you, or the people that you were connected to in the past were poor choices for your life, or the people that you were connected to in the past weren't right for you and didn't value you, so why would you connect yourself with people on a deeper, more intimate level? Because you don't want to experience that pain again. So in an effort to protect yourself from that, you're going to stay siloed and alone. And life isn't meant to be done alone, because the people around you are meant to lift you up. They're meant to share experiences with you so you don't feel like you're all alone. They're meant to encourage you and support you. And unless you're connected at a deeper inner level, that doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to. Unless you can rip your bandages open and be fully raw with your wounds, you're not truly connected with these people. And connectivity is something that we need from our core. It's something that we crave from our core. And so when you're connected with the right people, I'm not saying your circle has to be huge, but when you're connected with the right people, those are the people that you can share your tears and your excitement with, and your internal feels seen by these people. If you're siloing because you feel like you're not enough, your parts are trying to keep you from experiencing the pain of your past. And the last of the 8 C's is confidence. The confidence to know who you are, to know why you're in spaces, to know what you're supposed to be doing in those spaces, to know what your gifting is part of really resting in who you are and your identity. And when you start to feel insecure, that is, again, your protector part saying, you can't do that. You're going to embarrass yourself. People are going to look at you like you're crazy. That idea is nuts because no one has done it before. But your confidence will tell you to be innovative. Your confidence will tell you to take a chance and see what happens, because your confidence knows who you are. Your insecurity is afraid that that version of you won't be accepted, so it makes you feel less than. And it's trying to protect you. Again, these parts show up in a great way with intention. But what they're doing to you is causing you to self-abandon what you know to be true internally in an effort to keep yourself safe from something that doesn't even exist externally yet. You've made it up. You've picked pieces from your past and said, these things are going to exist now because I've seen them before. But just because the same thing shows up doesn't mean that it's going to operate in the same way. You've had failed relationships, but at some point someone's going to show up and show you what love looks like. I promise, I've seen it. I know it. You've had poor parenting choices and circumstances in the past because of the way you were parented, but that doesn't mean that you're going to parent that same way. That doesn't mean that you can't break those generational curses. And so you have to have the confidence that these kids are yours because God gifted them to you. This spouse or partner is yours because God gifted them to you. This vision, dream, and talent is yours because God gave it to you. And to step out insecure is to say, I don't really trust that you actually gave that to me to do something with it. But to step in the confidence that you gave this to me because I know what to do with it is really tapping into that core version of you. And healing, if you really want to be healed, is about leading from the self rather than those parts. It's about unlearning the narratives that created those parts in the first place, while also tapping in to your true internal self. It's about saying, I see all of these parts. I know that they're here. I know why they're here. Welcome to the party. And also, I don't need you here. I don't need you to do this part. I don't need you to keep me safe here. I don't need you to make me feel fear. I want to be brave and courageous. I don't need you to make me feel chaos. I have an internal calm. And it's naming those parts and understanding when those parts show up, that it's not you showing up. It's a piece of a narrative that your brain has created to keep you safe. And you can choose to listen to it or to say, I see you. I see why you're here. And I don't really need you right now. It's like when your lane mitigation or your brake system in your car starts beeping at you, but like nothing is happening. Wasn't trying to turn, I was just switching lanes and no one's over there. Or I'm backing up and there's a car, but it's parked. Or yeah, I'm close to the car in front of me, but we're like in stop and go traffic. And so the mitigation system or the sensing system is beeping at you, but you're safe. And you know that you're safe because you can see what's happening in front of you. It's the same thing. These parts are setting off alarms and they're beeping at you and they're telling you need to brake and not change lanes and all of these things to keep you safe. But you have the vision and sight of the core you that says, I hear you, but I'm good here. I can see what's happening and I trust me. So as I've told you in the last couple of episodes, there is a call to action in all of these, an exercise that I would love for you to do to start working on this piece of you to get to a place of healing from not listening to these parts as loud and blaring as they are, but to really rest in your internal space and your core. And so this week I'm going to ask you, this is going to require some journaling, but you know I love a good journal. You are going to pick one C word from that list of 8 and ask, how can I embody this in my daily life? How can I feel calm? How do I get rid of the voice of chaos? How can I feel curiosity? How do I get rid of my rigidity voice? How can I feel clarity? How can I get rid of the confusion voice? And I'm going to tell you a space where this happened for me in my life that I need you to hear me. Because when I've told people this story, they say, I don't know if I could have done that. A lot of us as parents place a lot of stake and claim on how good of a parenting job we've done or how poorly. We judge ourselves, right? But when someone else insults our parenting, we're like, boo, I know you better take 4 steps back and go to the left because I know you're not talking to me. We get frustrated and defensive because we don't want someone to tell us that we've, when doing our best, made a mistake. But what if the person who tells you that is the person who you're actually parenting, who has experienced what it's like to be your child? So I had a conversation with my 24-year-old, I think he was 22 at the time, and something had happened. He got angry. He sent a paragraph text, and when that happens from your 24-year-old son or 22-year-old son, you know something is big because 22-year-olds are not usually men of many words. And so I read the text. I heard what he was saying. I sat in it for a minute, and then I asked if we could have a conversation. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of parents who would have said that message is disrespectful. But I refuse to do that because in concentrating on the disrespect, that people would have assumed was happening in that message, I would have missed the message altogether. So I said, okay, he said the thing, and now we're going to talk about the thing. And so I asked to have a conversation. And in that conversation, he said things that hurt my heart. He said things that bruised my ego. He said things that made me question everything I ever did as a parent. He said things that broke my heart, really. But my heart wasn't broken for me. It was broken for him. And in that conversation, I held space and I said, you know what? You have every right to feel what you feel right now. You have every right to be concerned. You have every right to think that patterns are repeating. You have every right to have carried that hurt and pain from things that you experienced in parenting with me. Now, I was 18 when I had him, so of course I made a plethora of mistakes. But I didn't in that moment share my intention with him. I apologized. I held space. I stayed calm. The chaos showed up and I heard it. I was like, hey, girl, I hear you trying to create this chaos in my brain that says everything you've ever done as a parent is trash. You're the worst mom ever. Look at what you've done to your kid. He's going to have to go to therapy because of you. It was a whole situation that was going on in my brain. But I tapped into my inner calm and I said, you're right. I'm going to hold space for you to have all of the emotions that you have. But can I share from my perspective, and can you hold space for what was happening with me? And he did. And we had a conversation, and I apologized for all the things that I did that may have hurt him. I apologized for all of the times that I might have missed the mark and not heard or seen him. And though we didn't leave that conversation with some sort of solution to any of the things that had happened in the past, we left that conversation feeling seen by each other, feeling respected by each other. And that's very important, because remember I said most people would have thought that text message was disrespectful. Feeling respected by each other in the conversation and having a level of trust to be connected and vulnerable with each other. And that one conversation is starting to shape his internal knowing. It's being able to say, I have a feeling about this and I'm going to share it because it is in me. And there's nothing wrong with having this feeling. And I need to share it with this person so we can get clarity. And so I tell you all of that to tell you that there are going to be times where your part energy shows up. And in order for you to tap into your self energy, you're going to have to know the difference. So when you look at those 8 C's and you look at their counterparts, you'll start to see when the self energy is doing its thing and when that part energy is coming in to keep you safe. I didn't feel safe in that conversation with him, but afterward, there was a level of safety there to know that we could come to each other with anything and that conversation could be had and there wouldn't be defense, there wouldn't be devaluing. We would just have the conversation and hold space for one another. So if you're in that space today, I would encourage you to this week, look for that one of those 8 C's you're going to focus on and really start to understand, write down how you can embody it, write down the places where the opposite shows up and where you need to remain mindful and cognizant of your habitual patterns in those spaces. And I promise you that doing that on a weekly basis will start to show you what it's like to be in a healing pattern. And then you can walk it on a weekly basis so that you can start to formulate a version of healing for yourself. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you as always for sharing the message. Remember that knowledge gained and kept to yourself is selfish, but knowledge shared with the world could just be the catalyst that they need to break free from the bondage that they're experiencing. So go to my socials, follow me there, like and subscribe to this page, and share the message so that someone else can break free from their bondage. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.